Disclaimer. This video contains copyrighted material, the use of which has not always been specifically authorized by the copyright owner. I am making such material available in my effort to advance understanding of this topic of the wilderness. I believe this constitutes a fair use of any such copyrighted material as provided for in Section 107 of the Copyright Law. Now, with that being said, let's get into this.
All right, straight off the back, y'all already know we are like public enemy number one up on some of these social media streets, right? So I don't know if this is gonna get copywritten or pulled down or whatever, but y'all be saying something, and I'm gonna try to remember what y'all be saying. But this is for educational purposes under the copyright laws of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should have did this live, but I'm about to hit y'all with this information, no jive. So shout out to Austin Gentry for this article. I appreciate you. No, I'm not trying to update my phone right now. So thank you again, Austin. This is another installment in our Passing Under the Rod Wilderness series, family. So Austin Gentry tells us that there are 4 types of wildernesses, right? And excuse ahead of time the pagan name for our father, or the pagan title given to our father, okay? But we know him as Alua, right? And Yahuwah. So here we go. The book of Exodus tells the famous story of Yahuwah's people wandering in the wilderness for 40 years following their exit from Egypt and before reaching the promised land. Interestingly, though, their overall 40-year-long wilderness experience consisted of 4 different types, or 4 different wildernesses in particular, each place having its own set of unique testing, trial, and temptation. This is very important, family, because the Most High had been showing me back in the winter, a couple months back, that there were different types of wildernesses, right? And so this was really cool for me to find this article because it kind of lines up with what Yahuwah had already been showing me. But so they first entered into the severe wilderness of Shur, and this can be found in Exodus 15 and 22. And then moved into the scarce wilderness of Sin, Exodus 16:1. And the reason I'm not going to read these scriptures is because I really wanted this to just be a short video. I found this article to be something that this Passing Under the Rod Wilderness series cannot do without. This is some great information. So you guys can go ahead and read the chapters for yourselves, right? But so after a quick stint in those wildernesses, they progressed into the chaotic wilderness of the Rephidim, Exodus 17:1, and then settled somewhat indefinitely in the mundane wilderness of Sinai, Exodus 19:1. In each wilderness, Yahweh taught his people many profound and practical principles of faith, the same ones he teaches us today in the wildernesses he led us into and through. Let's take a look at each of the 4 wildernesses the people of Yahweh went into and how their experience serves as a lesson of faith for us today. 1. Wilderness of Shur. As the people of Yah entered their first wilderness, the wilderness of Shur, they quickly realized it was a place with no water at all. And this can be found in 15:22, Exodus 15:22. This would prove to be a wilderness of desperate need, right? So one of the wildernesses was a wilderness of desperate need, a wilderness of drought, dry, right? So when I think of places like this, it's like it's death, it's suffering, it's, right? So for 3 miserable days under the hot desert sun, the people languished under exertion and thirst. They searched and searched and searched until they finally found water. Except, tragically, the water was poisonous and undrinkable. Now put yourself in those shoes. Put yourself in the shoes of our ancestors. And it says here of those poor Israelites, but we know that they were not Israelites, right? They were Yasharalites, right? So put yourself in the shoes of our ancestors who were going through much suffering at that time, and imagine this gut-wrenching scenario: thirsting, 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 then finally finding what you craved, only then to discover it was a counterfeit, making you even thirstier than before. What a roller coaster of emotions, expectation, and exertion. Finding the bad water must have made the people feel so betrayed and embittered. In fact, they would end up calling the place Mara, which means bitter water, because the water was bitter, and they were too. Desperately embittered. I like the way he's give. Can you guys visualize this? Visualize this. I like he did a great job with this. So it says, desperately embittered and terribly parched, they called out to Yahweh, and in response, Yah showed Moshe a tree, telling him to cast it into the bitter water as a way of purifying it. When Moshe did so, the water became healed, sweet, and drinkable. Exodus 15:25. And the people, let me just verify. Hold on. Let's go there real quick. Exodus 15:25. I'm just showing y'all all my business, right? Let me make sure that's there though. Exodus 15 verse 25. And we ain't even about to play with this version. As it is, I'm reading an article written by, what I had said, Exodus 15:25. I'm scrolling. Read with me, because I'm scrolling. All right. Okay, I'm at 15. My bad, y'all. My bad. I'm coming. Then he cried out to Yah, and Yah showed him a tree. And when he threw... Let's read the whole thing. I want to read the whole thing. Not the whole chapter right now, but... All right. For the horses of Pharaoh went with his chariots and his horsemen into the sea, and Yahweh brought back the waters of the sea upon them. And the children of Yasharal went on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Yada Yahweh. I just heard someone the other day call this like a second Passover, a second time that Yahuwah miraculously caused death to pass over them, but did not spare the Mitzrites. So it was interesting how she called this a second Passover. That was I get where she was coming from, though. I really do. But then there was literally a second Passover, because I wouldn't say that this was a literal Passover, but it was a literal Passover, right? It was. So shout out to the sister that said that. But the other Passover was when I believe that they missed the Passover, and Moshe was merciful and did a second one. You can look that up for yourselves, right? But check it out. Google it. Anyway, verse 20. And Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aharon, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. And Moshe brought Yasharal from the Sea of Reeds, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water, and they came to Marah, and they were unable to drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. So the name of it was called Marah. And the people grumbled against Moshe, saying, "What are we to drink?" Then he cried out to Yahweh, and Yah showed him a tree. And when he threw it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a law and a right ruling for them, and there he tried them. And he said, if you diligently obey the voice of Yah, your Eloah, or your Elohim, as it says here, and do what is right in his eyes, and shall listen to his commands, and shall guard all his laws, I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought on the Mizrites, for I am Yahweh who heals you. Okay, so yes, that is correct. It was where he said it was in Exodus 15:25. Let's keep going. And the people drank until they were satisfied. Now imagine this time thirsting, and then finally partaking of what you craved, and it being everything you hoped it would be. And as much as the bad water was a tease, the good water, the real good water, was just as satisfying and more. The real deal is always better than the counterfeit, okay? And this it doesn't say and, but in this wilderness, miraculously and supernaturally, Yahuwah provided for his people good water in a parched, putrid land. What is this telling us? That we have nothing to worry about. Stop with all they're poisoning the food, they're poisoning the water, they're poisoning the meat, they're poisoning the vegetables, they're putting vaccines and everything. Number one, the Bible said that we would be able to intake poison and it not kill us, okay? But number two, trust and believe that your Father will always provide for you. There's so many channels and everything now telling us how to start growing our own food. Y'all better start doing what y'all need to do and stop crying. Stop crying when Yahuwah has already given you all things pertaining to life and righteous living. Okay? Anyway, my bad. Okay. But much more was happening than just their severe thirst and a slacking salvation. Yahuwah's miracle working power at Marah. Here, Yahuwah was testing them. A 3-day period of desperation to see if the people would trust him to sustain them where he had led them. Yahuwah wanted them to trust in him and taste and see his satisfying grace for their desperate needs. Do you trust Yahuwah? Do you trust Yahuwah? So after providing clean water, Yahuwah then brought his people into the land of Elam, a place known for its lushness, 70 palm trees, and 12 springs of water. You know, this is the second time this jumped out at me this way. The 70 palm trees and the 12 springs of water. And I think of the 70 and the 12 disciples that Yahusha initially began with. And then as they grew, then they went from the 12 to the 70. So there's no coincidence here that they found 70 palm trees and 12 springs of water. Let that revelation sink in. I don't want to sit here and play prophecy games with y'all. Like, I can really break these things down, but I see a connection here. I don't know. Y'all that be doing the prophecy stuff for real and all that. Like, look through this and tell me what y'all see, okay? Because I see a connection here. But anyway, so of Elam, a place known for its lushness, of 70 palm trees and 12 springs of water, their acute desperation was followed by a much longer term abundance of oasis. What's next? the second wilderness, the wilderness of sin. After their quick journey through the wilderness of Shur and their extended resort like stay in the land of Elam, Yahweh then led his people into the wilderness of Zin, whereas the wilderness of Shur would be a wilderness of urgent need. The wilderness of sin would be a wilderness of daily need. All right, so they went through the suffering. Then he blessed them with lushness and gave them all this good stuff. And so now he's about to let them go through some more hardship. And it's like he's saying, do you remember what I just did for you? Will you trust me again when things look a little bleak? When you're a little thirsty, a little hungry? So, as the scripture explains, the people did have a sufficient and clean water source at Sin. However, they had just exhausted their national food supply. All that they had brought from Mitzrayim or from Egypt. Looking around, they quickly realized Sin was a place with no food. So they went from having no water to now no food, okay? No food at all. Again, they cried out to Yahuwah for help. How many times do we do this? He get us through something crazy, something difficult. We go through a season of goodness. Everything is calm. Everything is good. And then boom, another hard season come. And you cry like he just didn't get you through a crazy season. Like you got to doubt him. Like he not going to get you through this time. They cried out to Yahuwah for help. Except this time, their cries sounded forth with a darker, bitter tone. Here, the validity of their cries hastily turned into vile complaints against Yahuwah, expressing nostalgia for Pharaoh. So after they done seen Pharaoh let him go, chased him back down to kill him, Yahuwah opened up that water, caused them to pass through on dry land, caused Pharaoh and his people to go through, drowned them, caused poisonous water to be made sweet by throwing a branch in it. They seen all these things, and now they got the nerve to what? Here, the validity of their cries hastily turned into vile complaints against Yahuwah, expressing nostalgia for Pharaoh. They wanted to go back to Pharaoh. Can y'all imagine us getting out of here and talk about some? Well, you know, Trump did. Remember, Trump sent us them stimulus checks and stuff. Remember, you know, they raised minimum wage and everything like that. Man, I wish y'all would. Matter of fact, I wish y'all wouldn't. I hope y'all don't. Okay? All right. Anyway. So, they began to express nostalgia for Pharaoh, their old, cruel ruler. Together, they reasoned. Yahuwah, why would you do this? At least we had meat pots and bread to the full back there in slavery. You know, we had our food stamps. You know what I'm saying? Remember, we had them food stamps. Now we got to go and we got to make sure the chickens laid the eggs. Man, now we got to go and we got to plant these things and make sure that we plant them at the right time. And this other stuff, we got to harvest this stuff. Oh, I bet not. See, this is why Yahuwah is taking his time. We're getting us out of here to make sure that we really ready and make sure our heart posture is right. See, there's still so much humbling that has to be done to our nation, to our people. We're still running around believing a bunch of lies about things. I'm not going to get into it about all the lies that y'all running around here believing now. Because I'm just like, oh my goodness, if it ain't one thing, it's another. It's like what's trending now in the so-called awakened Hebrew communities. Because I'm like, oh my, Yah, help us. But anyway, I digress. Again, Yahuwah was testing them. When the people were weaned off of an earthly provision, what would their souls cry out for and cling to? Would they trust the unseen, faithful heart of Yahuwah, or cling instead to the scene, albeit merciless, ruler of Pharaoh. Will they trust the Yahuwah that they cannot see but can only believe in from the works that he's done? Or would they trust in the one that they can see that he know gonna treat them like crap, but at least they get some water and some meats in their pots, right? Nonetheless, Yahuwah spoke into their clamorousness a word of mercy and provided for his people, sending a day-by-day provision for food, sustaining them for their entire journey, all the way until they reached the promised land. Yahweh sent manna and quail morning by morning. Okay, I can't help it. Morning by morning. In fact, so abundantly, such that whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. Here too, in this wilderness, and that can be found in Exodus 16, 19, and 21. So here too, in this wilderness, miraculously and supernaturally, Yahuwah again provided for his people food in an infertile, insufficient land. There was only one condition. Yahuwah's provision would be day by day. Can you trust him day by day? Some of y'all are on y'all day by day. Some of y'all are sleeping in cars, are sleeping in hotel rooms, different Airbnbs. Some of you are sleeping in people's houses that make you feel unwanted and unwelcome. Some of you are literally getting what you need day by day. Are you murmuring? Are you complaining? Are you saying, why me, Yah? Or are you trusting? I got what I needed today, and I know he got me tomorrow. There was only one condition. Yahuwah's provision would be day by day, not all at once. Yahuwah programmed this type of provision with a same day, one day expiration. They couldn't even save nothing. You hear me? They had to trust him for that next day. In other words, this Yahuwah given provision could not be stockpiled lest it was spoiled. But why would Yahuwah do this and set it up this way, especially in a wilderness? Because it forced his people to daily trust him for their daily needs. In doing so, he was teaching them to not trust in their own ability. Don't trust in your own ability. Don't trust in your own wisdom or your ability to control resources. So I'm telling y'all, he was laughing. How do I say it? You know, there's people that got food spoiling because they went purchase happy. You know, like the sky was falling tomorrow. And through that whole time, because I was being influenced by everybody else, I'm like, yo, I got to prepare. I got to get this. I got to get that. I got to get this. I got to get that. And Yahuwah kept saying, you not getting none of that because you're not taking it with you. I'm going to sustain you while you are where you are. And when I move you, I will make sure you have all that you need for the move. And when you get there, you will have what you need. Trust me. I thank the Father for the hardships that I've experienced because they just taught me time and time again. He got me. He got me. All I need to do is trust and believe. He got me. And he got me. Okay. So, again, because it forced his people to daily trust him for their daily needs. In doing so, he was teaching them to not trust in their own ability or wisdom or control or resources for navigating their future, but in his heart and wisdom and ability and resources. We must trust in the heart of Yahweh, the wisdom of Yahweh, and the ability of Yahweh and the resources. Remember, he provides for all of our needs according to his riches and glory in his word and in Mashiach. Okay? Yahuwah's first test in the wilderness of Shur was a 3-day period of desperation, but Yahuwah's second test in the wilderness of Sin was a day-by-day posture of dependence. At Sin, Yahweh was uniquely teaching his people to cling to new mercies. New mercies I see, great is your faithfulness. All right. I'm gonna need to get Amma or somebody to sing that so I can attach that to this segment. Let's see what's gonna happen. If his faithfulness and love sufficient for each day, if his faithfulness and love are sufficient for each day, available every morning, sustaining grace. I feel like I'm not reading this right. Hold on. At Sin, Yahuwah was uniquely teaching his people to cling to his new mercies of his faithfulness and love, sufficient for each day, available every morning, sustaining grace for their daily needs. Yada yada. The third wilderness of Rephidim, and then the fourth wilderness is going to be the wilderness of Sinai, that I'm going to have to tell y'all about in the next segment, because this is all I got for now. Well, I got more, but this is what I'm going to give for right now, y'all. I feel like I've kept y'all long enough, trying to keep these videos short and sweet. So prayerfully, I will be back to go over Wilderness 3 and 4. And again, this is Austin Gentry's research that he did through the word of Yah. And even though he called him God, but I'm appreciating him for this service. I'm out of here, y'all. Love y'all.